Hello, everybody, and welcome to Limited Level Ups. I'm Alex, and this week's episode is called Top 5 Ways to Use the Wheel. The wheel, of course, being the last cards that you see in the pack. More specifically, the cards that you will see once again after you take your pick one, pack one on the wheel, quote unquote. It's pick one, pack 9, and I guess you can also consider the analogs of pack 1, pick 2 to pack 1, pick 10, all of that. This is a topic that I've used previously in the past and how to best use the information you get on the wheel. But I think this is the first time I'm going to be doing a true deep dive on the topic. It's one that sounds a little bit niche, and it's like, well, how much can you actually get out of just the last few cards of the pack? But it's one that I feel like in my own drafts, I'm using all of the time, pretty much, if not consciously, subconsciously. Like, it's something that's at the back of my head. Sometimes it's very, very active, and it's like I'm paying a lot of attention to the wheel. Sometimes it's more just like I'll note it, but it's something that I use a lot. We had Ryan Sachs in the podcast last week. He talked a little bit about that. He uses the wheel a lot in the way he drafts. In fact, one of the impetuses for recording this episode was the fact that because Ryan was on talking about the wheel, had a lot of questions in the Discord and on the stream about just like what exactly do you mean when you're saying you're watching the wheel, right? What does all that entail? So I kind of just wanted to get into that a little bit. Often when I choose a topic for the podcast, I try my best to hit both ends of the spectrum, or all ends of the spectrum of player experience and skill level, right? Because I don't want to have a topic that's going to go way over the head of people new to Limited, where it's just like, I can't follow along with this. There's too many levels here I'm not in tune with. But I also don't want to have a topic that is, so basic that the more experienced players are going to be like, well, I know all this, why am I listening, right? And I think the wheel is actually perfect for that, because I think the players who don't use it at all, or at least, very, very little, are going to potentially have a big level up here today. At least that's what I'm hoping. And even the players that do use it quite a bit, I think there's a lot, it's a deceptively deep topic, I guess, in the ways that you can use it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Of course, before we jump in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Patreon, patreon.com/limitedlevelups. That's the place you can go if you want to support me or support any of my content. All of it. If you want to support the stream, if you want to support the podcast, of course. If you want to support the articles, the absolute best place goes most direct to helping out the shows and, making them better every single time. I want to give a quick shout out, of course, to everybody who does support every week. Really, really appreciate that. And I want to give a quick shout out to the fact that there's a lot of different reward tiers over there if you choose to support. If you feel like the podcast or anything I do has helped you win a few more drafts, if you feel like it is giving you some value in some way, we appreciate the support and we want to give back. So all the tiers have Discord benefits, but there's also benefits that go up to draft log reviews and deck tech help at a whim on the Discord. Also coaching and access to the Cordo classes, the weekly Cordo classes that I've been doing and posting on the YouTube. And yeah, really would appreciate anybody checking it out. And just, one last thing I will say about that YouTube. It's been growing. I've been posting almost daily draft videos over there. So if you're somebody who Twitch gets a lot of love in the Magic community, but if you are somebody who is more of a YouTube person, I want to, kind of accommodate for you as well. And I, hope you like the YouTube content over there. So with that, we'll jump in. So, first and foremost, I think it is important to talk about why is the wheel important. And, like I was saying before, I think there are some players who might not even think about the wheel at all. So I kind of just wanted to highlight why I feel it is so important in both, draft navigation, but also just like thinking about it as a way to holistically read the table. So I'm starting with a quote here from Jean-Emmanuel Depraz, who is, of course, a MPL member, if you don't know. And this is a tweet from him. And he said, I think the most underrated and misunderstood drafting skill is reading signals after the wheel. Whenever someone asks me about a pick in Pack 2, I feel like nothing relevant can be said without knowing how the second part of Pack 1 went beyond what they picked, right? And what he's getting at here is that context is everything, obviously, in draft and in Magic, but the context specifically of what you have seen beforehand really, really matters. And because Pick 1, Pack 9 is the first pack that you see, the cards that you have seen in the first pack, right, come all the way back around, it's the very first time you get confirmed information, right, about you know these cards are gone from a pack, right? I think often on stream, people will ask me, pick 5 comes around, right? Pack 1, pick 5. And it's got some pretty good cards in it, right? I've got a pack here in front of me. Colossal Sky Turtle, Master's Rebuke, Okiba Reckoner Raid, Network Disruptor, even, Ironhoof Boring, Clawing Tormentor, kind of, some decent cards in the pack. And we're at pick 5, and often I think people talk about these kind of picks, pick 5, pick 6, maybe pick 7 as the signal-y picks, right? Where it's like, okay, well, I can kind of figure out what I want to get into, what lane is open, what colors are open. But really, a lot of the cards you're seeing at this part of the pack are very much bound to just pack composition, right? There's a Colossal Sky Turtle here at pick 5, but there's also a few uncommons gone, and, there's the rares gone. So maybe somebody took a good green rare, a good green uncommon, and the Colossal Sky Turtle and the Master's Rebuke are still in the pack. It doesn't really mean that much, right? You don't really know because you can't confirm it. Signals are really muddy until you get to pack 1, pick 9. And the wheel is the first instance of certain information. It's the very first time you can say in the draft, like, hey, I've seen these cards before, and because of that, I can, no guesswork, nothing about that. You can literally look on 17 lands if you want to. Here are the cards that have been taken. Here are the cards that are still in the pack, right? And I think a lot of the time, those kind of like shaky, muddy signals can lead people into the wrong direction, thinking, oh, I see a lot of green cards here. I should move into green. That particular draft, right, that I was just talking about there that I had with the Colossal Sky Turtle in the pack and the Master's Rebuke. Our pack 1, pick 9 came back in that draft. And in the draft still, or in the pack, there was a Season of Renewal, a Tales of Master Seshiro, and a Historian's Wisdom, which Historian's Wisdom is a very, not a awesome card, but it plays a part. It is a green card. And I knew, I was kind of unsure as that pack was coming, but as I got to the wheel, I could confirm that green was the most open color because I looked at what was taken out of the pack, and the only green card that was taken out of the pack was a Master's Rebuke. You know what somebody took over Season of Renewal, Tales of Master Seshiro? They took a Kaido's Pursuit, right? Just the 3-mana discard spell. So that means somebody either really doesn't want to be green or really has strong reasons to be black or has like some strange, opinions about the format. Either way, I then carried my draft out from that point, ignoring the Okiba Reckoner Raid I saw in that pack, ignoring some of the other good cards of, other colors, and I was like, okay, you know what? Green is the direction I wanted to go towards, right? And that was a decision I made specifically because of that wheel. That is a lot to take in. The concept of reading the wheel is tricky, more of an art than a science, I would say. Oftentimes people say, like, what card would you consider a signal on the wheel? And that's not super clear. A lot of times it's more about density than actual, the individual cards. Sometimes it is about the individual cards and not density, right? Like, the later I see a really powerful card on the wheel, the more I'm going to read it as a clear-cut signal. The more the less good the card is, the more I'm going to be like, okay, whatever, it was just, the scraps of the pack. But at the same time, if there's a lot of cards that are kind of like scrappy, maybe C- level cards, and they all came back around, that also means something a little bit, right? So before we get into the information of, top 5 ways to use that information on the wheel, which is today's main focus, I do want to get a little bit into how to read / how to remember the wheel. Because I think this is something that, this is a part that trips a lot of people up. Or this is the part that maybe if you showed them that pick 1, pack 1 compared to that pick 1, pack 9, they could look at it and they can make some comparisons. Be like, yeah, it's very easy to be like, okay, all the green cards are still here, right? But actually remembering that there was only 3 green cards in that first pack you saw and all of them came back, you've got to do that first, right? You can't, I guess the good way to think about it is you can't analyze the data that comes back without first collecting it properly. So I just want to touch on some ways to read the wheel, some ways to remember, the cards in the wheel, because remembering the cards that you saw in pack 1 is a big cognitive weight on your already tricky task of drafting, right? There's so many things to focus on in drafting, so many moving parts, and this is just one more thing you have to think about. So I just want to talk about kind of the way I approach it and maybe some tips and tricks for if you are somebody who you're just getting to that level of being able to remember the wheel pack. So the easiest thing, the absolute easiest thing is use 17 lands. 17 lands now tracks in real time what your picks are. So as soon as you make a pick, it will update that draft on 17 lands, and it will account for that. So what that means is once you get to your wheel pack, it will actually show you what has been taken. You can very clearly lay out, the cards that are still in the pack, compare them to the known missing cards. Or, you don't even have to use 17 lands. You can just screenshot. This is what I do for the team drafts, right? Especially in team draft, actually, where the wheel really matters, or it matters more, I should say, because you really, really need to figure out what the people around you are doing. And also, there's fewer picks in the draft, there's fewer people, so the wheel comes around quicker. I do this all the time. If you watch me do the team draft with, against team limited resources, that is the first thing I do. Screenshot my first pack because, I can't use 17 lands. And that really, really does help. In the digital age, you don't have to remember it, right? You don't have to be like, okay, well, this card came back. I have to, what was in my first pack? You don't have to juggle that, right? It's all there in front of you. Now, of course, the question comes up, what if you can't use 17 lands? What if you're your local game store? What if you're playing on your phone, right? I know a lot of people like to play on their phone. It's not that easy to just pull up 17 lands. In fact, you can't pull up 17 lands when you're on your phone because it's not connected, right? So what do you do then? What if you're at a competitive event, right? I mean, a non-arena a competitive event, of course, right? There are strategies that you can use, and I do use a lot of the time. So the first thing that I think really helps is take some time to survey pack 1, right? Your pick 1, pack 1. You open a black mythic dragon, Jinji, right? And you're like, sick, slam that. Yeah, I remember I was notorious when I first started drafting for like just as soon as I opened a bomb rare, I just slammed it, put it in my pile, didn't look back, right? But that's really bad if you really want to consider what's coming around the table. You just can't do that, right? And on Magic Arena, you've got 1 minute and 5 seconds. 1 minute and 5 seconds is a lot of time, especially later in the format where you kind of know some of the cards. You can easily narrow it down to 2 or 3 cards you want to take in the pack. After you know what you're going to take, you've got some time. You don't need to rush through. Survey the pack, kind of figure out, hey, these cards are here. Like not even in a methodical way, but just kind of as a osmosis, kind of in a osmosis way, where just like you're kind of intaking the pack so it gets a bit imprinted in your mind, right? There are some, methodical ways to do it, and we'll get into that, but just spend some time with the pack. is really flip through it if you're in paper, if you're on your phone, just like take some time, look at it. You do have a lot of time in your pick on pack 1. The more methodical ways that you can do it is mark the notable cards, right? Say it out loud, right? So I have a pack here. And forgive me, by the way, for anybody listening to audio only and not watching on Twitch, today's episode, I should have said this before, but today's episode's a little bit image heavy. I'm going to do my best to spell it out, but we've got a lot of packs in front of us. So, bear with me. As I said, I will do my best to kind of spell out everything here. So I've got a pack in front of me here. It's got a Soul Transfer as the rare, a Banishing Slash, which is the white removal spell, a Colossal Sky Turtle, the Simic Gold card, Patchwork Automaton, a Gonjo Exemplar, Mothrodder Patrol, Repel the Vile, Future Sentinelist, Clawing Torment, Dekuchi Shadowwalker, Okiba Reckoner Raid, Aki Ronin, Kami's Flare, Season of Renewal, and a basic land, and that actually matters because it's not a dual land. So I just said a lot of cards to you. You don't need to remember them all. You know what you need to remember? You need to remember like 5 of them or 6 of them. And this is a good pack, right? This is a pack with a lot of cards. A lot of packs will just be like, all right, there's 5 or 4 or 3 good cards in this pack. If you just mark, all right, Soul Transfer, Banishing Slash, Colossal Sky Turtle, Automaton, Okiba Reckoner Raid, and then Kami's Flare, right? Just note that those cards, it makes it a lot easier because when you come back on the wheel, you're like, hey, either those cards are still here or they're gone, right? If they're gone, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter so much. But so if some of them are still here, you know that those, 5 cards that you mentioned, somebody took much worse cards because you pointed out the good cards beforehand. The other method you can do, slightly more methodical, and this is something I think I learned from LSV. LSV used to do this a lot in his old draft videos. He still might do it, actually. But the count to 8 method, and this helps if you specifically want to wheel something. Like you have something in mind in the pack that you're like, I take this Soul Transfer, let's say pick 1, pack 1, but I would like to wheel the Clawing Torment, right? How likely is it that I wheel that Clawing Torment? And, this helps not just for taking the Soul Transfer and then saying, what can I wheel out of this pack if I take the Soul Transfer to go with it? But also, if you know there's a Clawing Torment in the first pack, you don't maybe have to take a Clawing Torment pick 5 over another good card, for example. So what you do is you just take the soul transfer and you count to 8, or I guess count to 7, right? And those 7 cards are the cards you expect other people to take. So in this pack, I would expect people to take Banishing Slash, Sky Turtle, Automaton, Reckoner Raid, Kami's Flare, Season of Renewal. I would expect to wheel the Clawing Torment out of this pack. I think it's pretty reasonable, right? And that means that, one, you can plan around that, right? You can plan around being like, okay, cool, maybe I don't have to take it and pick 5 because I think one's going to come back out of that first pack. Or you can say to yourself, hey, I want to specifically, like maybe you're choosing between the Soul Transfer and the Banishing Slash, right? I'm specifically going to take the Soul Transfer because I know I can wheel that Clawing Torment where I wouldn't be able to wheel a good white card out of this pack, right? Maybe you wheel the Repel the Vile, but I think that's a worse card than Clawing Torment in most cases, right? So that count, right? And this also doesn't have to be your pick on pack 1. I want to be clear. All these strategies I'm talking about, they work for pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Those are all the wheel packs that will come back. You can do that count a lot of the times, and this comes down to like one of those sweat moments where I'm like, okay, so there are 9 cards in this pack or 10 cards in this pack. Or no, it would be 8. Yeah, there's 8 cards left in this pack, or 9. I'm getting my numbers mixed up, but basically just enough so that when it's gone around the table one more time, there will be a singular card in the pack when you get it back, right? And I'm like, wow, will people take 7 other cards and maybe I get to wheel this Repel the Vile as my last card? Usually no, but there's a lot of times I'm like, oh, I really, really want to take that gamble and take this other card here and see if I can wheel this less desirable card, stuff like that, right? Another way you can kind of distill pack 1 or make it easier to remember what comes back around is a concept that Ryan Sachs talks about in one of his better articles. Not that they're all not good, but this one is really stands out to me, called From Picks to Paths. And he was actually on the podcast about talking about this concept a few months back, maybe about a year actually. And the specific thing he talks about is the information bottleneck, right? The information bottleneck is a very fancy math term that he explained to me, and I got it at the time, but maybe I won't be able to explain it very well here. But the long and short of it is if you think about grouping certain cards, you filter them through what you would describe as a bottleneck, right? And then what comes back out the other side is your wheel pack. So let me put this into practice here, okay? So we've got a new pack here for all you audio-only listeners. We've got Kami of Transcendence, which is the 2-mana rare, cares about enchantments, puts a counter on the Kami whenever you cast an enchantment. Anchored Reality, which, unplayable, 2 blue. Well, unplayable unless you are a sicko and want to go get your 7/7 vehicle, but it's the Tinker, right? Replication Specialist, the 5-mana 3/4 flyer that, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, you can copy it. Dragonspark Reactor, Imperial Oath make 3 2/2 samurais. Spirit of Companion, Protocol, Disruption Protocol, the counterspell, Spell Pierce, another counterspell. Modern Age, Dakuchi Shadowwalker, 5/5 ninja, Inkrise Infiltrator, the 1/2 flying ninja, Ironhoof Boar, Jukai Preserver, the 4/4 channel creature, comes in with a counter, puts a counter on something, and Searchlight Companion, or 3-mana 1/1, make a 1/1. So the way you would compress this pack, right, and he talks about in terms of compression into the bottleneck, is, let's say you first pick the Kami of Transcendence, right? And you're like, wow, there's a lot of good cards in this pack. How do I possibly remember how I'm supposed to, how do I remember what cards come back if I can't screenshot it or look on 17 lands? Well, you can group them into certain pairs or certain, subsets of cards. So because there is a Kami of Transcendence in this pack, I am most looking for cards that pair with that Kami of Transcendence. So instead of remembering every single card in that pack that I just mentioned, I'm more mentioning, number 1, green cards, right? Or thinking about green cards, which is Jukai Preserver. Or cards that go with this Kami of Transcendence. So enchantments, right? Spirit of Companion, Modern Age. Imperial Oath kind of goes with it as just like a card that goes in green decks, right? So I don't need to remember every single card in this pack. I can group things, right? And I can say green cards, that's one group. Jukai Preserver, okay, that's one thing I can remember. I can also think about it as enchantment. So I can go Spirit of Companion, Modern Age, Jukai Preserver. Those are the enchantments in this pack, right? Those are the things you really, really care about. And if those come back, that tells you something. If those don't come back, that also tells you something. You can kind of offload some of that mental strain by saying, these are the cards I care about, and if they don't come back, well, I don't need to think about them, or I do, or I need to think about the fact that maybe I should move into something else. So for me, if I was trying to compress this pack, I would do those two things, right? I'd say group them in enchantments, group them by color. And color is often the most common one, but the cards that play well with it theme also matter. And this pack comes back, right? And it has a Anchor to Reality, it has a Disruption Protocol, it has a Searchlight Companion, it has a Dokuchi Shadowwalker, Iron-Rift Boar, and what do you know? The Jukai Preserver was the card that came back, right? And what that tells me something very important, that nobody took a green card out of this pack. And because I compressed the information to say there was only one green card in this pack, that tells me a lot. That tells me quite a bit. Now, you can argue somebody, the green player took the Imperial Oath, let's say that, right? But for the most part, in most situations, if you group it like this and you say, hey, I got all of the green cards in this pack, and sometimes it's going to be one card, sometimes it's going to be three, that really does help. And of course, if all of this fails, all else fails, you can just see what's left, right? So I've got a pack here. It's a pack 1, pick 9. I've got Nezumi Prowler, Agonjo Exemplar, Era of Enlightenment, Golden Tail Disciple, Light the Way, Mukotai Ambusher, and Season of Renewal. Well, Nezumi Prowler is a really good card, and that came all the way back around. That's pretty impressive. So, I don't even need to remember necessarily what was in that first pack. I just go, hey, a good black card came around, and it's also in a pack with another good black card. That's another push in the direction of, oh, okay, black could be open, right? You have to consider, though, here's the tricky part, because what's missing is just as important as what's left. Now, not to say that looking just at what is in the pack still is not good, but to get that full holistic approach, you do need to, in some way, remember what's missing, either, again, through 17 lands or using one of the methods I was talking about. Because if you look, somebody took a Satora Umazamba, right? Somebody took an Inkrise Infiltrator. I think it is very easy to go, hey, Nezumi Prowler wield and Mukotai Ambusher wield, I must be the only one in black. And it's not necessarily true. You're probably one of the only people in black, and it's probably open enough that it is safe to move in. But it's I would caution against using those sweeping overgeneralizations here, because there is certainly somebody looking to get into ninjas and potentially two people, especially because there's also a Moon Circuit hacker gone out of this pack, right? So this is a lot. This is quite complex, right? It sometimes comes just down to, hey, all these cards of the color are still in the pack, like we have with white in this pack. Kind of funny. There's quite a few good white cards in this pack. Somebody took a When We Were Young earlier than those other white cards I mentioned, like the Era of Enlightenment, the Golden Tail Disciple, right? All that kind of stuff. But other than that, the white seems to be kind of open. So that's something you can look at from this pack too. Again, it is more of an art than a science, in the sense that almost just like any other signal, right? You should consider it as a data point, not as a sweeping, this color is open because it wheeled, right? This color, for sure, I know, I can guarantee, it is just a push in the direction of, hey, maybe I should go towards this color, or maybe I should go away from this color, right? To finish up this section here, I do just want to say, the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. I know this is a lot to take in. I know if you're not used to this, this can be something that, on top of all of the moving parts, the other moving parts of draft, it can be a bit difficult to just parse and keep it in your brain. But just like any skill, any magic skill, any other skill, just, whatever, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the quicker it'll become second nature. I remember when I started doing this, it probably, like when I went from absolutely not caring about remembering my first pack at all to actively trying to, it probably took me, I want to say a month of drafts of actively doing it, and then being like, okay, you know what? I actually feel like I don't have to put as much thought into it. It's kind of just coming naturally now. And, that requires some active practice. It's not just some passive, I've listened to this podcast. I know I'm aware of it. I think it does require a little bit more, effort than that, but it does pay out dividends. Because again, I really do consider this in every single one of my drafts, right? Reading the wheel, considering what came back, reading my first pick, or remembering my first pack, this is something that either I'm consciously thinking about, or the cards, when they come back around, is something that, in my subconscious, I'm remembering, okay, I saw these subset of cards earlier, and now these wheeled cards came back around. How does that impact my draft, right? And of course, we're going to get into how does that impact the draft right now. So, with all that out of the way, the preamble, the tips and tricks, we're going to get into top 5 ways to use the wheel. So, number 1, this is the most critical one, and the one that I've been talking about the most here. I've touched on it, But it's very obvious. It's to see what the rest of the table is doing, aka signals, right? It's the very clear-cut one, but I do think that there is a lot to unravel here, a lot to get a little bit deeper into. So, when we think about reading signals, it's kind of a nebulous topic, to be honest, right? I think signals get a little bit mixed up and confused as to what does it actually mean to read signals and what counts as a signal, what kind of card counts as a signal. Like I was saying before, where things are muddy before the wheel, because, really you're unsure what the pack composition was like. How many red cards were there in the pack? There might have been 5 good red cards, unlikely in this format, but there might have been 5 good red cards in the pack. And, you got shipped a pack with 3 good red cards, and it's like, oh, wow, that's amazing, right? The most holistic way to reading signals, or the most holistic approach to reading signals, is considering the wheel, because you move from reading what is beside you on the other side, right? What your neighbors are doing, to reading what the table is doing. And that's a big difference. I think as I've seen drafters get better and better, their progression, as I've been, in either coaching or just like watching players get better, local game store, that kind of stuff, I can see this natural progression of you start only worrying about your own stuff in the draft, right? You're just like, there's so much going on. I just need to focus on the cards I'm taking, right? And then you move into, oh, hey, I'm not the only person here. There's people beside me passing to me, and I'm passing to people, right? So I need to consider them too. And then when you get to this third level of reading the wheel, you really start to think about the table. And of course, it's hard to figure out what the person on the other side of the table is doing, but you don't need to know exactly what they're doing. You just have to know somebody at the table is taking these cards, the blue cards, the ninja cards, the cards for the enchantment deck. And sometimes they're not taking them at all, right? And that will vary draft to draft. If you can start applying a lot of these concepts, you're going to start thinking about the table or the draft holistically and signal reading holistically as the whole table, not just in your insulated, what you're passing, what you're getting passed. And I think that is, something to strive for, because the drafts become a lot more clear. You get these, a lot of times you get these kind of like renegade signals that are like, why is this here? That doesn't make any sense, right? And you can kind of figure out as you're going on, or as you're employing this whole holistic way of thinking. Well, I know based on the previous packs, this was something that was likely to happen. I saw some red cards trickle through. I understand this. Or you understand the way that the draft goes left, right, left, and you can understand that in pack 2, you're expected to see more red. That kind of stuff, right? Anyways, let's get into, just diving back into the whole thought of the wheel helps you read signals. The wheel tells you what decks are open, not just what colors are open, right? That's another point here, where we're not just trying to read signals. We're trying to read, hey, what's the deck? What deck am I supposed to be drafting? And that is all the more important in the age of draft decks, not cards, right? The most obvious example is if a gold card wheels, right? If a Naomi wheels, you're like, all right, well, nobody's in black-white, or at least, the person who might be in black-white decided to take a better monocolored card, and there are not other people fighting for black-white. And it's especially important if you're in an archetype, or that card is in an archetype that can't support multiple people, right? You need to make sure that, let's say black-white, which I think is one of those archetypes where you really want to be one of the only people fighting for the white cards. You want to confirm on the wheel that is something you should be doing. So maybe not specifically Naomi will be wheeling, but cards for that deck, maybe Kami of Terrible Secrets, although that one can be applied to a lot of decks. But, cards that are specific to specific decks, especially when those are narrow decks, that's something you want some confirmation of on the wheel. It doesn't need to be specific color pairs, though, right? It could just be broadly, can I do this thing, right? So multicolor decks is another example, right? So if you're wheeling lands, if you're wheeling Network Terminal, that's another deck that's not necessarily tied to colors, but that space is open. The multicolored space is open. If you're wheeling the terrariums. And if you're not wheeling those things, well, maybe you should go, all right, let's back up a bit. Maybe I should focus in on 2 colors, not to try to go wild. And the other thing, too, is there's a lot of formats that you can have 2 people drafting the same color, but they want different cards, right? And they could be beside each other even, right? So like in some formats, there's some really controlling white cards and really aggressive white cards, and the 2 people drafting next to each other, they don't want the same cards. For example, a good example in this format is if you have a controlling black deck, Clawing Torment is something that you don't really want. The 1 mana enchantment gives something -1, you can't block, they lose life on their upkeep. But as an aggressive black player, that's something you really do want. So if maybe you're seeing a little bit of a lack of black cards in the pack, but you're getting the good aggressive black cards, that's still a sign that it's like, okay, thumbs up, I can still draft my aggressive black deck. I might not get the best of the best cards, but it doesn't mean that I have to completely abandon chip, right? Just to go back to gold cards quickly, something that's interesting. I mentioned Naomi wheeling, and Naomi's one of the ones that does wheel the black, white, gold card with some regularity. It's really tricky, though, because I think sometimes, again, this is going back to it all being still just data points, nothing for sure, nothing at all in concrete, more of an art than a science. The gold cards, it might just be somebody unwilling to take a gold card early and they ended up in blue-black or black-white, and it's like, okay, well, I'm black-white, but I should still ship the Naomi, right? Or it might just be somebody who, like I said before, needed to take another card that wasn't the Naomi over it. They took a Life of Toshiro, and they ended up in black-white. So don't get too hung up on the gold card wheeling. That just might be an anomaly, but it is a good push in that direction, right? Everything I'm talking about here is more of a push in a direction than anything else. Along those same lines, talking about decks that, don't necessarily need the colors to be completely open, just needs specific cards to come to you. Blue aggressive decks versus blue controlling decks in Kamigawa, right? So say somebody first picked a Holding Unspeakable a few packs away from you, right? And they moved into like this multicolor blue-green kind of space, right? They might prioritize Mirror Shell Crab over Network Disruptor or something like that. A lot of the time, I've looked at my draft logs after the draft and gone, I wheeled all these ninjas, the suit-ups, the Network Disruptors, the Moon Circuit Hackers, even though I don't think blue was all that open. People were taking blue cards. They were just taking the blue cards I didn't want, right? So don't worry about there being a lack of blue cards sometimes, or you should worry about it, I guess I would say, in the rest of the pack. It's something to be aware of, but it doesn't mean if you don't wheel, or if you're not seeing exactly the blue cards you want in the middle of the pack, the wheel can tell you if your deck as a whole at the table is open. You'll still be able to get those ninjas late and those Network Disruptors in pack 3 or pack 2. A very clear example of this, the colors not being open, but a deck's being open, popped up in Ikoria, and it popped up a lot actually, where, Imposing Vantasaur or, the Memory Leak, all these 1-mana cyclers, right? They weren't really white cards or black cards. Color didn't matter very much. You just wanted them if you were cycling, and that's the most obvious example, right? But it really popped up in, stuff like the Menace deck or the Vigilance deck. People could be drafting, the Vigilance deck was a green-white deck. People could be drafting green-white next to you, or, the person next to you had green cards, the person past that had white cards, right? But maybe the white drafter was taking cycling cards, the green drafter was taking mutate cards, right? And the Alert Heed Bonder, which is the gold uncommon for your deck, comes to you. Right, so it's like, okay, well, nobody wants this card. I can draft all the 1/4 defenders, 1/4 vigilances, and the cards that care about, having vigilance, and I'm still gonna have a good deck. There's also, a lot of formats have this, but like the Steel and Sack, they had Tentative Connection in that format with black sacrifice outlets, active treason effects. Similar stuff can happen there, where it's like, okay, maybe I'm not in the most open red lane, but these cards for this specific deck are coming around, I can still draft it. Okay, so if we've established that there's information from that wheel that you are going to gain by reading it, the question becomes, what do you do with that information? How does this affect your draft? Should you hard pivot if none of the cards that you're for the deck that you're drafting come back around? Maybe. Maybe that's something you should do, but maybe you should just ignore it. How do you know what to do in these situations, right? It's all up to you. It's by no means am I saying that the wheel should dictate where you go 100%. It should influence it, but it's not hey, the wheel came back, change, hard pivot. And where the way your draft has gone already, your first 8 picks, really matters. So what it comes down to really is the more focused your start is, the less you'll want the wheel to affect your draft. And the inverse is true with a rocky start. And you can also substitute a rocky start with a open start or a flexible start, right? So for example, say you have a deck where you first pick Kaito Shizuki, the ninja gold blue black card. you have a Silver Fur Master, you have a Kiba Reckoner Raid, maybe a few other good ninja cards, and you're like, oh man, this is coming together, right? This is really, really happening. And you notice in that pick one, pack one, where you had the Kaito, where there was also like 3 other ninja cards or 2 other ninja cards, right? And they didn't come back around. Well, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to like, completely pivot to a red deck or something? No, of course not, right? You still want to draft that blue-black deck. And because you've already locked in really, really good cards for that deck, the Silver Fur Master, the Kaito Shizuki, you don't have to worry so much about having the nuts in the next 2 packs, right? That's one of the things. One of the core ideas, the core premises of drafting is you see what's open early, you get hooked up later. But if you are drafting in a way, or your draft went in a way where it's the opposite of that, you got hooked up early, and you're hoping to get good stuff later, but maybe it's not going to happen. It's okay if you don't get as much good stuff later, because you've already locked in the good stuff. You've kind of already fulfilled what the purpose of staying open is, right? Now, maybe there's other worlds and other drafts where you ended up in a, the most open deck at the table where you didn't open that Kaito, but you're not going to give up your great pack one just because those ninja cards didn't wheel, right? Let's have a different situation though, right? Let's say we were down that ninja path. Maybe we had some blue cards, but mostly we had black cards, right? We had Okiba Reckoner Raid, we had the Long Reach Knight, Virus Beetle, Twisted Embrace, just like a good suite of black cards. And maybe you had it in your head that you were ninjas, because maybe you but you somewhere in there you picked up a Moon Circuit Hacker, right? And you're like, okay, let's see if ninjas can be a thing. Maybe you even have a Lord, right? You have the Silver Fur Master. You do have a really good reason to be specifically blue-black. I think once you get to the wheel, and say you notice that all of the blue cards are gone, but there's still some red cards in the pack, and some pretty good red cards. There, you're kind of in that middle space of, well, I've got a really good start, but hey, those blue cards didn't come back at all, right? That's actually like kind of telling. And this Kami Flare came back, right? The Tashiro Song Shaper came back. That's a spot where I'm probably going to be like, okay, I should let that wheel influence where I go from here. Right? I haven't started in such a narrow path where I can't go anywhere else, right? I've actually done a good job of taking just black cards, and I can pivot. That's certainly something you can do if you've done the work of staying close to black. Of course, if you were in a position where you had to take gold cards, or it was a good idea at the time, it's harder to do that. But if you're somewhere further down on that spectrum of openness, you should consider the wheel a little bit more, right? Another way to think about this is if you've got a lot of fixing, if you've got network terminals, you've got Uncharted Havens, maybe you're trending towards that space of like multicolored good stuff. Often you want the wheel to tell you what your base for multicolored good stuff should be, because you're going to live somewhere in the world of 3 to 4 to 5 colors, right? But you still need some sort of base, a blue-green base, a black-green base. And often that multicolored base will be decided for me by the time I get to the wheel, because it's like, okay, these pretty decent black cards came back, or these pretty decent blue cards came back. A lot of times that base is going to be green, almost always, but the second color, you can decide on the wheel. And because you've got a lot of fixing early, you're flexible to figuring out what that second color is a little bit later. The worst case scenario, not the worst case scenario I would say, but kind of a perilous place to be, is your draft has gone really sketchily, right? Maybe you just had weak packs, and you have some kind of okay stuff, but I'm sure we've all been there where it's just like, yeah, I first picked this removal spell and I got past the okay uncommon, and then the packs were kind of weak. In those kind of packs, I am very willing, or those kind of drafts, sorry, I am very willing to put a lot of stock into the wheel, figuring out what comes back, because I need to work with the flow of the draft in that kind of seat, in that kind of draft, rather than carve out some sort of lane with the cards I already have. Because I don't have that awesome start, I'm willing to be like, all right, let's see what the table's up to. Let's see if I can move into, pick up what the people at the table are putting down, get into a good draft, maybe get past some good cards late in the pack because I'm reading the signals, right? And that's often going to be incentivized because, hey, if your early picks aren't that good, then what are you giving up, right? So just to reiterate here, the more that your pack one went awesome, right? Just you were down a streamlined path, ninjas was super open for the first 8 picks, the less you should care or put stock into what the wheel has, because you've already locked in some good stuff. You don't have to worry too much about what you get past. You're going to make playables. You're going to have a pretty good deck. But the more either rocky your start was, the more open-ended, the more like, I don't have a lot of draws into a particular color, or the more flexible you are, the more the wheel should dictate where you go, and the more the wheel should dictate where you're going in pack 2. Specifically, here's a pretty good example, right? So let's say you're in that situation where you've got a lot of good black cards, right? And you were kind of figuring out, should I be blue-black? Should I be black-red in pack 1? Oftentimes, how the wheel will influence what I'm doing is it will help me tie break a pick in pack 2. And often what that means is I open a bomb of one of those colors, or maybe another color I wasn't even considering, and I have to choose between that and a pretty good card of another color. Okay, so in this pick here, I have the pick between Kaito, the blue-black planeswalker again, or Life of Toshiro Umezawa. Now, you could argue this pick is a bit, maybe not the absolute best example, because Life of Toshiro is close enough to Kaito that you could argue that if you're not sure where you're going, you should just take the monocolored card anyways. But let's say the example is toned down a little bit. Let's say instead of Life of Toshiro, I'm choosing between Kaito and Twisted Embrace, let's say, okay? Kaito's a better card than Twisted Embrace. But if I noticed in my pack 1 that none of the blue cards came back on the wheel, I'm definitely just going to take the Twisted Embrace, because it's highly likely I won't be able to play that Kaito. Where it's likely I'm going to be able to play that Twisted Embrace, maybe in black-red, and it's still going to be a really good card. This is probably where I use the wheel the most. The absolute most is when it comes to this pack 2 tiebreaker. And this is something that comes up, I don't know, maybe not half my drafts, but I'd say maybe a little less than half my drafts in a lot of formats. Okay, number 2. The second reason, or the second way that you can use the wheel is to secure 2 cards out of a pack. This one's kind of cool. So, this is kind of, it almost feels tricksy. It almost feels like some sort of weird hack in a way. I'm going to shout out Ryan once again, because Ryan was the person who taught me this, I think. So the premise here is there are a lot of packs where card A plus card B is greater than card C. Card C is the best card in the pack. Okay, so for this example, I'm going to say it's Kappa Tech Wrecker, okay? Card A and card B are both black cards. And let's say this is a pack with a lot of black cards in it. So you've got, imagine this pack. Kappa Tech Wrecker, best card in the pack. And you've got, the rest of the pack is littered with black cards. Okiba Reckoner Raid, Clawing Torment, Soul Transfer. Maybe there's even a Twisted Embrace in there, right? You could take the absolute best card, right? Just lock in that absolute best card, that Tech Wrecker. But what I think is better to do is take the second best card there, the Soul Transfer. Because by taking the Soul Transfer, you lock in, or close to locking, you're very likely to wheel another black card. So out of that pack, you get 2 cards for yourself. If you took the Kappa Tech Wrecker, maybe you take, maybe you wheel one of those black cards and you're specifically black-green and it works out, you still get 2 cards. But if, let's say Kappa Tech Wrecker is the only green card in that pack, or the only good green card in that pack, you're only getting that Tech Wrecker. And if I had to show you, hey, do you want Soul Transfer and Clawing Torment or Kappa Tech Wrecker? That's kind of close, but a lot of situations like this aren't that close. And I would just say I would much prefer the Soul Transfer and whatever card rather than just the Tech Wrecker. This comes up in later packs more often than earlier packs. So when you know what colors are going to come to you a little bit later, so like your pack 2 and pack 3, this is a little more relevant. Like once you kind of know where the draft has gone, maybe you're more likely to wheel a black card. But a lot of the time, I will make this kind of pick where I go, here's another example. I had a pick on stream where I was red-black, and there was a lot of good red and black cards in the pack, right? And I picked a Circuit Mender because that was a colorless card. And I know somebody's going to take that Circuit Mender. And I'm going to get one of those red and black cards somewhere in the pack. Here it is, actually. I just realized I have it here. So the pack here is Lizard Blades, Okiba Reckoner Raid, Voltage Surge. There's quite a few good black and red cards here, right? Clawing Torment's another one. I just took the Circuit Mender, though, because I know I'm going to wheel one of these cards. I'm never wheeling the Circuit Mender. The Circuit Mender is certainly going to get snatched up by somebody else, right? There's Chad is saying there's an argument here, and there's another kind of train of thought that says that if you pass on the black cards, right, people are more likely to take them, right, and move into your lane. And this is a very common thought. I think that is true. I think that that is something to consider, but I also think that is something that people tend to overrate, tend to overvalue as something that drives their decision in a draft, right? I'm much less worried if one or two people somewhere down the line get into black. I'm much more worried if I take that cap attack wrecker, right? And then I don't get a good card later as well, right? I think it's more important. That's the calculus, right? I think it's more important to try to get two good cards out of that pack rather than worry about what other people move in. Because the thing to consider there is it's just one pack. You're looking at one pack in isolation. So yes, maybe your pack is pass a bunch of black, but that's not going to be true for the rest of the packs. Maybe the next pack you get has only 2 black cards. Maybe there's one good black card, right? I think if you just don't worry too much about what you pass, you're going to be in a better spot a lot of the time, especially because what you pass is just less important than what you get passed, because there's only going to be one pack that matters for, pack 2, right? Packs 3 and pack 1 are more important because you need to read the signals of what you're getting past. You don't have to worry so much about what you're passing. So I understand the concern totally about like, oh, if I pass all these black cards, maybe there's some concern about other people moving in. I think more important is that you get 2 good cards from that pack, right? I think that's what there's some push and pull there, right? No, again, not to say that there isn't a concern, but the calculus is, I believe, it's the lesser of 2 evils is what it comes down to. And so, like I was saying, the further you are into the draft, the more that this can work, right? Because the easier it is that you can predict the wheel. The way that Ryan always put it to me is there is less entropy in the draft as the draft goes on. What that means is, honestly, at the wheel of pack 1, you don't know what's going to come back. I could give you some ideas, but who knows who's sitting at your table, right? It could be 3 brand new players. It could be 3 very, very seasoned players, right? I can predict what might come back, and that's what I'm advocating you try to do. But it's very entropic. I think that's a word, math and science people. There is a lot of entropy. There's a lot of things that could happen, right? It's kind of up in the air. But as the packs go on, as the draft goes on, right? Pack 2 and pack 3 happen. You kind of get a sense of what people are settling into. And in pack 2 and pack 3, you can better predict the wheel because you know the black cards weren't taken earlier. The red cards weren't taken earlier. You can do this strategy of, take card A plus B over pack C or over card C more likely or more often because it's more likely that those cards you want do come back, right? I could bring you that pack I was talking about before, the Tech Wrecker, the Soul Transfer, Wreck and Array, Clawing Torment. And that situation that chat's talking about here might come up where, hey, all the black cards did disappear, right? I am definitely likely to do this maneuver, though, in pack 2 if I notice that the black cards wheeled in pack 1, or some of them did anyways, because I have a higher chance of actually, realizing that wheel and making sure, oh, I actually did lock in a card for myself because I knew the black cards came around earlier. Should you do this with gold cards is a question that I get asked often. Should you try to wheel the gold cards, right? If nobody's in your colors, should you take the monocolor card and try to wheel that awesome Oni Cult Anvil? Because you're later in the draft and nobody wanted the Oni Cult Anvils earlier. So that's tricky because you'd have to have pretty high confidence that 1, people definitely aren't in black-red, and 2, you're in a draft pod where people want to stay in their lanes, and that's just something you just you can't predict. Often I default to just taking the best card in that situation, which is often the gold card, especially because gold cards are very appealing. People really like gold cards. They are flashy. People try to splash them a lot of the time. So it is tempting to do this with gold cards more than monocolor cards because there's some idea that they are less desirable. But I think in practice, that doesn't work out that way. And either somebody in the table will try to move in because there's gold cards, and especially because, heaven forbid they go, ooh, nobody's in, black-red, the person on the other side of the table. That's just a nightmare for you. That's number 1. But number 2, I just think people like to take these cards either on speculation or on a whim of maybe splash them. Heck, I do that, right? And I'm sure you do that as well. So, it's, I would generally in that situation advocate for just taking the best card, which is the gold card for you, and not trying to take a monocolor card and wheel the gold card. This is all guidelines. There might be drafts and situations where you believe it's correct to do. You might believe that the monocolor card is just good enough, and if you don't wheel that gold card, that's okay. you open, a good black rare instead. You don't take the anvil. That's certainly something you can do. That's certainly a tactic, right? But if the logic is, oh, I think I'm the only person in black red, I should pass this. Well, there's a bit of pull and push there, so you got to be careful about that. All right, thing number 3 that you can do with the wheel. You can confirm you can move into a narrow strategy or not. So the prime example of this is Slitherblade, right? I talked about this with Ryan last week on the show, where Slitherblade is a 1-mana 1/2 unblockable. There was a strategy back in Omniket where you try to wheel all the Slitherblades, and you'd have this awesome deck, this aura-based deck where you put enchantments on Slitherblades, you go to town, right? That really required you to be the only person at the table that wanted Slitherblade. And if you note that they wheel, you can move in. That's a very specific example, and not every format has that kind of thing, but there are analogs, and that they appear more often in most formats. So one of the things you can consider, or one of the common ones is stuff like Whisper Squad or the Collectimals, anything that wants you to have a lot of the same card. So for those who don't know, Whisper Squad is single black mana 1/1. You can pay 2 mana to search your library for a card named Whisper Squad, put it on the battlefield. If you wheel a Whisper Squad, you then have the confidence in packs 2 and pack 3 to not need to take Whisper Squad early in the pack, because it's a card that I had first picked multiple times, in that format. It's just a good card. But some tables just didn't want it. Either they didn't know it was a good card, or they just were doing other things. So once you have that first Whisper Squad that you wheeled, it is very tempting to go, oh, now I want the second one. But if the first one wheeled, you have some of that situation I was just talking about with the gold cards a second ago, where you're like, well, you don't want somebody else to move in, and that's certainly a concern. It's something that you can take into account, and you can kind of factor into your calculation. But if the card is close enough, you're choosing between Whisper Squad and like a decent removal spell, let's say, or whatever this Collect 'em All is, or whatever set we're talking about, right? You want that second copy of the card, but you're weighing that against, ooh, this is another pretty good card. Well, you should probably just take that other pretty good card, because this goes back to what I was saying before about the card A plus B is better than card C. You can maybe wheel that Whisper Squad, right? There's a decent chance that it happens. All part of the calculus. Nothing's guaranteed, but everything in draft is shifting scales, and so I'm willing to weigh that as, okay, there's a good chance this wheels. So that's just another common situation that comes up. Another one more relevant to Kamigawa is something like you first pick the Kami War, or something that is very color intensive, right? Kami War is, I think, the best example because it's 5 colors. I have a lot of the time first picked a Kami War, and then in the wheel, none of the fixing wheeled. Either in pick 9, pick 8, there's no terrariums, there's no dual lands, there's none of that. I need to move out of that, because for Kami War to be able for me to cast the Kami War, I need a lot of fixing, a lot of dual lands, good amount of network terminals. I've been in the situation where none of the network terminals wheeled in pack 1, and that really tells me, hey, I can't go down this narrow path. I need to broaden my draft a little bit, right? Even though I was building towards that, because you want to, the goal is to avoid a train wreck here, right? You don't want to go down a path that just isn't open, and the wheel can definitely tell you that. Similarly, I've opened Kami War in pack 2, and I kind of thought to myself, what did pack 1 hold for me? And I actually went back in 17 lands and I checked. Okay, none of these dual lands, none of these network terminals wheeled. I probably shouldn't take this here, because I was in a reasonable spot to take it. I had some green cards, I had some black cards. I think I had one of the havens that fix for any colors. I was like, okay, maybe this is the thing I could do. And if I didn't check that wheel, I think I would have been in a much worse spot, because I would have taken the card and gone, let's see if I can make it work. And it just would not have worked out for me. There's also the situation, this comes up more at the beginning of formats than at the end of formats, when there's a lack of information, or the word hasn't got out yet that a certain card is good or a certain strategy. And there's sometimes cards that just are super undervalued early on, and you know that they're very good, or very good in niche strategies, but you don't have to take them necessarily. So the example I am thinking of is Price of Loyalty in AFR, right? The Act of Treason. That's a card that in week 1 of the format, I was just wheeling, and I knew I could wheel it almost certainly. And if I wasn't sure about it, I would use pack 9 or pack 10 as kind of a litmus test to see, can I wheel it in future packs? And if it came back around, I would go, okay, I'm drafting this Steel and Sack deck, but I don't need to prioritize the Price of Loyalty. I will instead prioritize the Deadly Disputes and the Sepulchre Ghouls. That changed later on, right? When the card didn't wheel anymore and you needed to take it a little bit earlier. This is more of a exploiting known information or unknown information rather than seeing if a niche strategy is available. But there's kind of an analog here to this. In some people's eyes, will be a niche strategy that they don't want this card for, even though you know it's a very good thing, right? So you can get a lot of value by not needing to take this B A-level card, take the supplementary part to it, right? Take the B to the A plus B, essentially, and you can go, okay, you know what? Like, I know these cards are going to come to me a little bit later. Same thing with Midnight Hunt, if you remember that. For a long time, the Decay tokens, they just came around late. You didn't need to prioritize them. Startle, excellent card. You just didn't need to take it that early because they would just wheel. So this is, again, more of a early format thing, but something to keep your eye on as the format goes on. Okay, point number 4, ways you use the wheel, number 4. To see if your evaluations line up with the others at the table. This is something that's been brought up in the chat already, so I want to address it. A lot of times in drafts, on Arena, at your local game store, wherever it is, you are going to be in a draft pod with people whose evaluations and expectations of cards do not line up with your own, right? That's just going to happen. Either, again, people, just jump into a draft set. Maybe they haven't this is the first time they're drafting the set, or maybe they're just new to Magic, or maybe they have a very specific strategy. Like, none of those things. They just are very good at Magic, and they have a very specific subset of cards they want to be taking. I'm thinking of somebody who maybe wants to force mono red in Cube or in Kamigawa, for example, right? And because of that, you're not ever going to be at a table with 7 U's, right? You're not. I think a lot of times we kind of think of drafting with 7 people that are roughly doing the same thing as you, or roughly have expectations or evaluations that are comparable to yours, but that's almost never the case. And often, I will look to the wheel to figure out if there are cards in my estimations or my evaluations that quote-unquote shouldn't be wheeling, right? If I was drafting with a table of 7 Alexes, those cards would never wheel. And what I can get from that, of course, is I can then, in my logic puzzle of how the draft is working, deduce that maybe I'm not working with, the most rational information, if you want to use kind of a computer analog here, right? Where if you are trying to deduce what is open and you notice things that aren't wheeling should be wheeling, or vice versa, you should probably tone down how much you're reading the table and instead focus on just the cards you can pick up. Or I guess the better way to put this is, don't plan to wheel anything based on expectations. Like, oh, this will probably wheel. Everything I was just saying for the past half an hour, downplay that a little bit and instead just kind of work with what you're given pack to pack, right? So the extreme example I have here is on stream. I had a pack 2, pick 9, Life of Toshiro, right? Life of Toshiro Umezawa wheeled, which shouldn't happen. Truly, hashtag not correct. I don't think there is a single draft where this is a correct thing that would happen. Somebody should take this at some point, right? Clearly what this means to me is everybody else at this table, or at least, a good number of people at this table's evaluations are different from mine, or at very least, they are locked into their lane to a degree that I would not be locked into. And so what that means is, from this point forward, I won't be using my own priors for what I expect should wheel to dictate some decisions I would make. And this is a pack 2 example, but this also happens in pack 1 as well. The more wild out there picks you're getting on the wheel, the more you can kind of understand that, okay, well, going forward, I'm not going to worry too much about the cards I saw on the wheel. And the cherry on the cake here, the icing on the cake, is if I looked at the known missing cards in this pack, it wasn't even that nobody was in black. They were in black, but you know what they took over Life of Toshiro Umezawa, or at least somebody did? They took a Reckoner's Bargain. The 2 mana, sack something, you draw 2 cards, right? And that's just like, all right, well, I know for sure, maybe somebody else is in black, and they clearly are, and I won't get every single black card. But if I'm going to get cards like this, cards that are very good cards, I feel okay being in black, even though maybe a few other people are in black. So that's just, one of the things you can consider using the wheel. And of course, the reason I'm saying the wheel here, not just in general, I mean, this is a thing you can apply in general too, to just anything. But the reason I'm saying the wheel specifically, as opposed to, pick 7, pick 8, is that you could hypothetically have had a crazy, crazy, crazy pack where, oh my goodness, I got an 8th pick, Twisted Embrace, let's say. That's a little bit less ridiculous than an 8th pick Toshiro, because that would still, I think, tip the scales for me a little bit. I could imagine a pack where I could conceivably ship the Twisted Embrace to the 8th pick. There was a nutty rare, 3 nutty uncommons, a really, a good red common, a good blue common, right? I can construct the situation where that happens. There's no way I can construct that situation where I wheel life, because I know the cards that were originally in this. All right, last one here. The last way you can use the wheel to your advantage, and this is kind of a 5/5A. And the 5 is to pick up playables in another color, and 5A is to try and cut a color. So these are related. I'm going to get into this. But 5 is basically saying, on the wheel, where maybe there isn't anything that you care about very much in your colors, and maybe you're locked into, or you're very incentivized to be black, red, let's say, right? And you're like, you're in one of those paths where you've gone, hey, I've got a really good black red deck, and I don't think I'm gonna, I've got the a rare, a black red rare, and I've got an Oni Cult Anvil. I think it's gonna be pretty hard for me to move off of black red. You can take off-color cards still on the wheel, because they are high EV hedges. Now, I'm not saying you're gonna play them, right? But imagine the world where you are so focused on black red. You're like, oh man, there's no way I'm moving off of black red. The wheel comes around. You see a Network Disruptor, you see a Moon Circuit Hacker, a bunch of good blue cards, right? And I was saying before how you don't necessarily, if you've got that awesome streamlined start, you don't necessarily want the wheel to influence where you take the rest of the draft. At the same time, though, it is pretty low opportunity cost to still just take those blue cards, because you never know what's going to happen, right? Let's say, in Pack 2, you open a Blue Mythic Dragon, right? A Carry, or a Behold the Unspeakable, and there's no good black or red cards in the pack. Well, okay, you just take that blue card, right? Because, hey, look, I've got nothing else to lose, I just take it. That one blue card is a lot more appealing if you took those late Network Disruptors and late Moon Circuit Hackers than it is if you didn't, right? Because there's some school of thought that just says, hey, I know what I'm going to be. I'm very sure at the end of pack 1 here, I want to be red black. But the opportunity cost of taking cards out of their colors is fairly low. So in my opinion, I think you should just take them, right? You open up that dragon in pack 2, you can just take it instead of taking nothing, instead of taking a really bad black card. And then the path for blue-red or blue-black does open up to you, and that's still an option, right? It's about expanding your options at this point. If the cost is so low on the wheel, just take the card. There's nothing that, there's not really much of a reason not to. Especially if you've got some reason to believe that your colors maybe are getting a little bit cut. That is another reason, right? Pushes you in the direction of, hey, maybe I do want to open myself up to another path. Now, there is another school of thought, and this is where 5A comes in here, cutting your colors, that says I should cut a color, or cut all the cards in my color out of that wheel pack for the sake of future equity, right? So say you are green-black, right, going through the pack, and your wheel is Aki Emberkeeper, Experimental Synthesizer, Scrapyard Steelbreaker, so some okay red cards. Synthesizer's a good red cards. Is a good red card. Aki Emberkeeper is a medium one. It's not unplayables by any means, right? And stuff that you could conceivably play in your red deck. But you started green black and there's a Tamiyo Safekeeping, right? You could just take that Tamiyo Safekeeping. Maybe you even have a copy of Tamiyo Safekeeping, right? There's a good argument for just saying, I want to ship these red cards and take this green card because I want to incentivize somebody else into playing red, and I don't want to be there, right? These are kind of conflicting schools of thought. I think they can play well together, but you have to be careful about where you apply them. And I think specifically in this kind of situation, where red does not play very well with green, which might be your base color, there's a very, very low chance that you want to take red cards in pack 2. So you're even more incentivized to take green cards here, right? You want to ship the red cards. The green, you don't want the red cards to be in your pile. You don't want to touch them, right? But the more you feel like there is a reasonable chance that you could play these red cards, the more you want to instead shift towards taking those cards, hedging, EV speculating, right? It's on a spectrum, as all things often are in draft, right? The more you feel like you might play the card, the more you should take it. The less you feel like you should play the card, the more you should just cut your color, take the unplayables, or, this situation, Tamiyo Safekeeping is just a decent card. But maybe we're talking about like Coiling Stalker, right? Or Fang of the 2/3 comes in with the counter if you've modified something. If you really can't see yourself playing those cards of a different color that are pretty good, I think it is reasonable to ship them, to incentivize somebody else to do so. But that's something you have to weigh, right? That is a decision you have to make in the moment, in something that comes with practice of, the kind of that push and pull. I wouldn't advocate for one way or the other. I would just put the idea out there that there are two different schools or trains of thoughts here, two arguments. Both are valid, and you might want to lean one way on the spectrum or the other based on how likely you think it is that those you end up in the deck that those good colors are coming to you late in that wheel pack. All right, that's it. Well, thanks for hanging out, everybody. We're gonna shift it to the Q&A, the chat Q&A, of course. We are live on Twitch as we are when we do these solo episodes. So that was all. I know this was kind of an abstract topic. Hopefully too much didn't get lost in the weeds there. If it did, please let me know. I would love to clarify. If you have any other questions about this, let me know. And yeah, that was the top 5 ways to use the wheel. And hopefully, some tips that you picked up along the way to more accurately and easily read that wheel. So chat, send them to me. If you don't see a color in the first pack, how likely are you to see it in pack 2? Great question. More likely is the easy way to put it. So I've kind of danced around this in this episode. I've talked about this before, but I'll just like spell it out if people maybe aren't aware of this. But because of the way that packs go, left, right? And actually, I know a few people who are arena only or have started Magic on Arena didn't even know that packs went left, right. They're like, oh, that's what those arrows are on the screen? Yeah, so you're going to be passing left in pack 1, right in pack 2, left in pack 3. And because of that, if you see a color that is very open in pack 1, it is less likely to be open in pack 2. Or more likely, actually, because you have some influence over what the person you're passing to sees. The opposite is usually more true, where if you don't see a color in pack 1, you are more likely to see it in pack 2. So if red is super cut pack 1, there should be that expectation there that you see it in pack 2. This is important so that you don't get worried or you don't get kind of flustered when you see 6th pick Twin Shot Sniper when red was completely cut in pack 1, right? Where you're like, oh my goodness, like what's that doing here? Often, like when I see that and red was cut in pack 1 and I see that Sniper in pack 2, I go, oh, that's to be expected. I know, like just keep calm, everybody. This business as usual. This is what's happening now. You should be going into that pack 2 expecting to see red. So yeah, just take that in consideration. And of course, the colors you see in pack 1 being open are more likely than not going to be open in pack 3. It doesn't mean anything is guaranteed. Weird things can happen in drafts. People can open bombs. Signals can get muddy and stuff like that. But as your baseline, pack 1 and 3 are going to be much more similar looking than pack 2 is. A follow-up question to that is, can you plan for that and then really concentrate on that color pack 2, knowing you're not going to see them in pack 3? Yes. So this is a tactic you might want to employ. Not always, but you might. The situation that comes up the most in is you first pick a bomb of a particular color. Okay, so for an example, let's say you first pick AO, right? The white Mythic Dragon. You see no white for the rest of pack 1, like no good white. You should expect white to be open in pack 2. And this is the back cut, right? You might hear people talk about this as the back cut. Because you expect white to be open in pack 2, and you would really like to play that AO, what you can do is you draft pack 1, you just draft whatever's open, take the good cards, the good black cards, the good blue cards, whatever it is. And because you expect to see a full pack of good white cards, you can then pair those with your AO. Your draft does not have to go in a way where you're in the absolute two most open colors. That's not a requirement to have a good draft. Often the way I like to think about it is you need one open color and one color with sufficient enough powerful cards. And if you can set it up in a way where you take that AO, which is certainly a powerful enough card, and pair it with, you pack 2, you get an Imperial Oath, you get a Spirited Companion, you get a white removal spell. That's probably going to be good enough to pair with your open black in pack 1. And then, of course, you should expect in pack 3, black will be open, most likely, if it wasn't pack 1. And maybe you won't see a lot of white, but you'll see trickles of it, and that's enough to have a good deck, right? Now, if your pack 1 went kind of rockily, kind of haywire, you don't have a color that you can anchor onto, you've got a blue card, a red card, black, or whatever, you probably don't want to fight the draft in that situation. You don't want to employ this strategy, because what will happen is you're rocky in pack 1, so you don't have a base of what your main color should be. You're fighting against the tide in pack 2, or you're picking up the coming tide, I should say, in pack 2. And then pack 3, you're going to be fighting the tide, because white is one of the colors you want to get into, but you don't have a solid secondary color, or primary color, I should say. So that can lead to a bit of a train wreck, but if you are in the space that you've opened a bomb that you want to play, and your pack 1 went smoothly, yes, you can use the fact that a certain color will be open in pack 2, one that you didn't see in pack 1, to your advantage. Yeah. Not sure if this is a question or a comment, but it's good to address. So my impression of the average arena drafter is that they don't pay much attention to the wheel, so passing C-level playables to them on the wheel isn't likely to influence many people. This is true. This is a good point. I have 2 thoughts on this. One, a lot of the things I talked about today are tangential or related to the level of drafter you're drafting with. And sometimes you know that. Sometimes you're at your local game store or with friends, and you know kind of the approximate skill level, and you can account for that. You can, I was talking about understanding if people at the table have the same evaluations as you. You can more accurately predict that based on if you know who you're drafting with. If I'm drafting, for example, if I'm drafting in the team draft, I am more likely to put stock into what wheels than I would be in a random arena draft. Or if I'm drafting at a high level event, the Pro Tour, whatever it is, right? I'm more likely to put stock into what wheels. If you're drafting in a random pod of arena drafters, yeah, you're more on the end of trying to figure out, okay, am I in a pod with people who are doing things that I would do, or am I in a pod where all the kind of small edges I've been talking about, passing cards, cutting cards in the wheel, or that kind of stuff, will that matter to them? Will they pick up on those signals? And if you know that beforehand, you're drafting with people that draft like you can go in with that knowledge. In a random arena draft, I do think about it, right? And if I notice in the wheel pack, hey, people drafted like I would draft, like all the good cards are gone, is a good way to put that, an easy way, then I am more likely to do the whole cut the cards in the end part of the pack so that I can, cut somebody off of the color or influence them to be, move out of my color or something like that. I will also say that even though maybe arena drafters on the aggregate don't pay so much attention to that, I do think they do pay attention just to color density. Like, I think even if you're not that experienced of a drafter, you can feel, oh, hey, like, I'm just not seeing any red cards, or I'm not seeing any black cards, or seeing stuff like that. I think the least experienced players often, as long as they see some cards, they'll just kind of take them and they won't think of the card quality. But there is something to be said for completely, if you can cut it out of the pack completely, I think that will influence, at least to some degree. I'm not saying you want to make giant concessions to it, but I do think it matters. So yeah, it's a lot to consider both before the draft and during. But you are correct in don't make sweeping, don't make large concessions for those times where you're like, oh, I can cut the color if I take this like worst card over this good card. If you're just drafting in a random arena pod and you maybe don't think that people are drafting the way you would. Let's say you're at a table and it's just chaos, complete chaos at the table. You have a really hard time reading signals. Colors open in pack 1 aren't open in pack 3. How do you exert control there? Do you just plant your feet? Good question. So if there's a lot of chaos, entropy is maybe another, fancy way to put it. If you're not sure what's happening at the table, there's like, wow, weird things flying around the table. Yeah, I would plant your feet maybe isn't the best way to put it, because I think it is valuable to be flexible in those situations to the cards that are coming to you. Like, if it was truly random and you're just getting fed like random card from the set, random card from the set, random card from the set, the closer it approximates that, the more you kind of want to be able to take the random card, the good ones you see, the random good cards you see, just pick up, hey, look, there's a random Twisted Embrace, right? So draft in a way, maybe this means taking more fixing, maybe this means taking more colorless cards, maybe this means just from a mindset, how you're navigating perspective, be open to anchoring yourself in one color and then moving into like any of the color combinations. But it also means that I wouldn't plant my feet in the way I'm saying I'm just going to do my thing and people have to, work around me. I would anchor into the cards, the good cards I already have, right? Because again, going back to one of the premises of draft is reading the signal so you get good cards later. If things are random, you're not promised the good cards later. So you should more latch on to the good cards you already have. So in that situation, what I tend to do is try to have a base, anchor into my base color of the cards I already have. So I've picked, a Mythic Dragon, I take that, and then I get, a few good white cards, and then white dries up and weird things are happening. I will try my best to anchor into that card I have good reasons to be in, while still being flexible to whatever comes to me, right? And it can get muddy, can get kind of tricky there, but that's my main... Broadly, that's what I try to do in those kinds of tables. In Pick 1 Pack 1, there are 3 good black cards and 1 good green card. If you assume that none of the black cards will wheel, how likely are you to take green and let others fight for black? Okay, so I've touched on this. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I do think it is worth talking about a little bit more. So this is the whole situation I was talking about where, there's the Cop Attack Wrecker and a bunch of black cards. Do you let the table fight over the black cards? I said it's better to take a black card if you think you can wheel one of the black cards in the pack, because then you lock in 2 cards in that pack as opposed to 1, even if that 1 card might be slightly better in a vacuum. The 2 cards together outweigh the one best card in the pack. So I think mostly this question comes from like the thought of, if you're passing a lot of cards of a certain color, aren't the rest of the people at the table going to want to fight for them, the good cards that you're passing? Just to kind of clarify what I was saying before, because maybe there is, I think maybe in the moment it was getting mixed up with other concepts. I do really think that people put too much weight on what they pass. Like, I know a lot of times people will take a much worse card out of the pack, Pick 1 Pack 1, because they're like, oh, I don't want to fight over this color, black or whatever it is, because there's a lot of cards that color in this pack, right? I think, like I was saying before, I think it is more likely you get 2 cards out of that pack than you get no good cards out of that pack and the color becomes cut. Because you have to consider that is just one isolated pack. There's so many packs moving around the table. The other cards in the pack, or the other packs of the draft, might not have a bunch of black cards. And you are putting a lot of weight on just your opening pack, right? Now, do I think it's a good tiebreaker to take the 1 card out of the pack if I don't think I'm going to wheel anything? For example, there's a Lion Sash, there's an Imperial Oath, and there's a Twisted Embrace, right? 2 good white cards and 1 good black card. Well, I think all those cards are pretty close. I probably just take the Twisted Embrace there because I'm passing 2 good white cards, and maybe the people next to me take white card, and then I get good black in pack 2, potentially, right? That's a decent tiebreaker. You also have to consider that, again, because people have different evaluations of cards, people aren't going to take maybe the cards you expect them in the order you expect them to take them, and you just can't predict that. So if you're making decisions based on your one isolated pack, those might have repercussions down the line that are actually work against you, not with you. Now, the question, if you know you're not going to wheel any of those black cards, should you just take the Cap Attack Wrecker? Probably yes in that situation. Yes, I think so. Because then it's got 2 forces working for you, right? You get the equity of, okay, I'm making people fight for the black cards in this pack, even though maybe that's not the biggest, that turns out maybe not to be the biggest deal down the line when the rest of the packs don't have that many black cards. But also, if you're not going to wheel anything from the pack, then the equation gets completely thrown off. You just want the best card in the pack because there is no A plus B greater than C. You just take C. So, yes, I would take the Kappa Wrecker if you told me I wasn't going to wheel any of those cards in the pack for sure. Any of the black cards. Is it worth attempting to cut in pack 2 so you have your more favorable picks in pack 3? It's kind of funny. This is actually moved more into like a draft navigation slash signaling discussion, but I think it all ties into the whole wheel. So am I willing to? So the question, of course, is black. Like white's not open pack 1. You want it to be open because you have a good card of the color. Is it worth cutting it at pack 2 so that it'll be open in pack 3 potentially? Maybe you scare the person off that was cutting it from you in pack 1. It's a factor. Like, sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, you bully them off of the color, and that's, like, a nice incidental upside. I wouldn't look to do it, though, as a primary reason to take white cards. Like, I think you want to have that reason to back cut in pack 2, that Mythic Dragon, before you try to employ that strategy. Because the train wreck of, hey, I tried to take cards that weren't in my color, that weren't open, and then I ended up with like 4 good cards of those colors, and I have no real reason to play the color outside of those 4 pretty decent colors, or those 4 pretty decent cards. That's kind of a disaster. So I would say that can sometimes happen, and that's a reason to, the situation you're describing where, it's open in pack 3 is a nice incidental upside of you cutting in pack 2 if you have a reason to, but I actively look to do it just to do it. So next question here. In the earlier example where you talked about the Kami War, where you noticed no terrariums, terminals wheeled, couldn't you expect terrariums or terminals to wheel in later packs, maybe in pack 2, pack 3, since people are normally content with a single copy? So it's not so much that I would be happy with, 1 or 2 terrariums, a few more dual lands to play that Kami War. It's that to play the Kami War, or to be in a spot where I'm comfortably playing the Kami War, nobody, or at least maybe one other person at the table is doing multicolor stuff, right? But if a lot of people at the table are in a multicolor space, not only will I potentially not get any more of those network terminals or dual lands, or I'll get only a few of them, but all the cards that support that plan, the Bamboo Grove Archers, the Season of Renewals, the higher rarity cards, I am less likely to get those, right? So not only is it, hey, I actually don't have the kind of infrastructure of those network terminals to comfortably play Kami War, it's that I also won't pick up the supplementary cards. So it's kind of a forecast for the future of what is open at the table. So could I potentially see terrariums and terminals at some point? Yes. But I need to see a lot of them, and I also am not, that's kind of a bad omen for seeing the other cards that are good in that deck if I don't wheel the terrariums in pack 1 or the network terminals or lands. You commented earlier that gold cards are drafted, quote-unquote, more than they should, generalizing. What are other kinds of cards that are drafted more than they should versus cards that are drafted less than they should be? I.e., what cards wheel that shouldn't wheel in this format? So now that we're a month and a bit into the format, I think we're that far in. Maybe time is just slowed that we're actually not that far in. But now that we're kind of into the format reasonably, I don't think, like, it's stabilized for the most part. And as you get later into a format, the good cards wheel less often, the bad cards wheel more often. That's just the way things tend to trend. Is there anything currently that I feel should go a little bit later or earlier? I mean, you could easily check out the average last CNAT on 17 lands, and maybe that's just an interesting activity to do right now. But I think that removal spells still go too highly. Like, if you look at the average last CNAT, all of the commons that go really highly are all removal spells. Like, people take Intercessor's Arrest, like the white pacifism, as one of the top, like, 3 commons or 5 commons in the set. So that's something that probably goes a little bit too early. Sorry, I should specify. Asla? Average last scene is what I'm talking about on 17 lands. It just marks, on average, where do cards go in packs amongst 17 lands drafters. So yeah, that's one thing. I guess cards that wheel when they shouldn't, I guess I'm mostly surprised at, like, shouldn't is kind of a little bit presumptuous and a little bit like, who knows how drafts went, so I don't want to be presumptuous, but cards that I'm most surprised sometimes that wheel are the Haven, like the multicolored land. Mostly because that's just a card that's pretty good in any deck, even if you're not doing multicolor stuff. Like, you should just play your first 2 dual lands, your first 2 tapped lands in the vast majority of decks. And I'm surprised at some point that nobody wanted to take that card. But again, who knows? Maybe the pack was constructed in such a way that it just makes sense if you showed me what everybody took in their piles. I think that maybe just cheap cards, cheap good cards in general, go a little bit later than they should. Network Disruptors, that kind of stuff. Okiba Reckoner Raid, I think, people know the card is good, but I guess, yeah, to make a really a sweeping generalization, expensive cards go too late. Or sorry, expensive cards go too early and cheap cards go too late. Which is just a fancy way of saying cheap cards are good. Fairly general, but how might you factor in personal draft bias into utilizing the wheel? That's a good question. So, I think this most comes up in that point I was talking about, where I was talking about how you can mark the wheel or you can note the wheel when you're trying to get into a niche strategy like that Whispering Squad deck or the Slitherblade deck or any of the collectibles. But more specifically, the Active Treason / Startle example, where there's something at the table that I know that the rest of the table might not know, or the majority of the draft population might not know, and I go, oh, hey, I want to exploit a lack of knowledge at the table. That's where it mostly comes up, where I have this window often in a week of a format, where it's usually the first week, where sometimes it's the second or third if there's something like very interesting that happens in the format. I guess actually a good example in Neon Dynasty is red decks kind of figuring out how to draft those. I'm like, okay, well, actually that's a really good example now that I think about it, because often I will try to get into a red deck, or my green light for getting into red after maybe I've like first picked some red cards is, okay, the Toshiro Songshaper Wield, and nobody touched the red cards in this pack, or the Experimental Synthesizer and the Songshaper Wield. That is the, okay, people at this table aren't valuing these cards where they should be, I need to move in. So often, as far as preferences and just biases go, there is a deck that I feel is underdrafted, and if I feel that deck is underdrafted, I'll be more alert to it being underdrafted at a given table. And when I'm given that green light, that thumbs up on the wheel, that's go time, and I will then in pack 2, where I wouldn't be so willing to first pick a red card, in pack 1, I'll be like, I'm just going to take this Kami's Flare because I know I'm going to want it. Now, there's some argument for saying you could wheel the good red cards, but again, that gets into the, like, how much push and pull do you want? There's some worry about other people moving into this strategy, even though it wasn't that open to pack, even though it wasn't that contested in pack 1, because there might be somebody at the table that is like you and goes, oh, hey, those red cards came around, that's my green light. I think at that point, you do kind of want to kind of stake your claim once you notice most of the table doesn't want those kind of cards. All right, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, if you're listening to this and want the visuals, it'll be up on the YouTube, Limited Level Ups YouTube. You can check that out there. And I stream this. I usually announce when I'm going live to stream the live podcast recording and the Limited Level Ups Discord, so you can check that out. Today's a bit of an anomaly. I don't usually do it on Mondays, but I did it today on Monday. Usually it's on Fridays or the weekend. So thank you, everybody, so much for hanging out. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.